Right, well, it's week 4. It's the second week of knowing yourself. And so our title for today is Accepting Your Humanity. We're calling this a root because it's about knowing yourself more and digging down in that area, but it quickly moves into seeing fruit. In other words, if you're able to take on board some of the points we'll cover today, I think you'll be more able to effectively serve God in your life, as well as deepening your relationship with Him. Now, remember the vine and branches story that Jesus told that we read a few weeks ago. The point was the vine gives life and the branches soak up that life. And part of what I want us to do today is to understand our frailty, our humanity, in that sense, our ability to produce life, that we need to get life from other things. It's the way that God has made us. You see, we're not superheroes. We are super reliant upon God and all that He's provided for us. And if we accept that, we can thrive. What do I mean? This is the way God has set things up, okay? We can only go without food for a couple of months max. We can only go without sleep for 3 or 4 nights before we start hallucinating and mental issues begin to occur. We can only go without water for maybe 3 days before it causes some serious health issues, potentially death. We can only go without oxygen for 5 minutes before we start to get some sort of brain damage. What about rest? You see, that's another thing that God has made for us, and He's made us to be those who rest. We think we can get away without it and there won't be an impact, but let me tell you this, there is always an impact. It may not be on you, but it may be on the people that you interact with. You may not kill over and collapse, but there will be a negative impact if we don't understand how we're made and what we need. Psalm 104 verses 14 to 15 says this: He makes grass grow for the cattle and plants for people to cultivate, bringing forth food from the earth, wine that gladdens human hearts, oil to make their faces shine, and bread that sustains their hearts. We are human. We need God to provide for us, to be our vine, to be our life source, to give us everything we need. So, I want you to take 5 minutes. This is our starting discussion session. 5 minutes. Have a chat about the following. Of the aspects listed above, food, sleep, water, oxygen, and rest, which ones are you most likely to skip on and why? And second question, what have been the consequences of doing that? 5 minutes in groups of 3 or 4 to have a chat about that, and we'll come back and watch the rest of the video. Now, I'm guessing in your discussion, you discovered that most of us have skimped in some way on some of those things at some point in time. Maybe not oxygen, although I do remember a craze at school involving holding your breath and bending over to get some sort of weird kick. I don't know, I can't remember the details of it, but most of us won't have skipped on oxygen. But we will have skimped of other things. And when we do that, we're often pretending we're more than we are. We're often pretending we're superhuman. And we're not accepting the fact that God has made us reliant on those things and therefore ultimately reliant upon Him. When we accept that, we can be stronger, which means we can glorify God more. This is the opposite of self-idolatry. When we think we're more than human, we're stronger than we actually are, we're hero-like or even God-like. Today's aim is this: to embrace our humanity and learn how to thrive. It's going to be an easy one. It's only going to take 10 minutes. We're going to rush through this stuff. You're going to have a great discussion and we're going to see some lives change. Maybe just a little bit, maybe a lot. We'll see. Right. Stewarding our energy. What a strange phrase. Stewarding our energy. We often talk about stewarding money as a resource that God's given us to look after. But just for a second and for today, I want us just to reframe our lives and look at it through this lens of stewarding and looking after the energy that we have or don't have. In other words, making sure we know we're getting the right amounts of energy and using the right amounts of energy. Not pretending we've got more energy than we've got. Not overspending on our energy, if you like. And therefore we can look at life for today and maybe other times as a series of events and activities that either re-energize us or de-energize us. They take energy out of us or they give us energy. Let me give you some examples. Every day in some way takes the energy out of us. And for most of us, every night's sleep gives us energy as well. The rest we require. Sleep energizes us. Or for me, running uses physical energy, but gives me more emotional energy. And after the very short term, like the next day and beyond, it gives me more physical energy as well. Being alive and breathing and moving burns energy, calories, and eating food gives me energy. There's just a few very basic examples, which you know, but I just want to put that in there to help us understand. Let me continue. There will be specific events and activities that will tire you out or energize you more than other people because we're all individuals. So for instance, and let me just say, these are nothing here is right or wrong. There's no moral value added to these. It's just an observation. This is about knowing ourselves. So for some people, going to a big party with lots of people really energizes them. And sitting in front of a fire, reading a book, it tires them out. And for other people, the opposite is true. Going to a party with lots of people, they might enjoy it, but it tires them out. Sitting in front of the fire, reading a book, they get energized by that. We're all different in different ways. And different events and different activities will energize you or de-energize you or tire you. And it'll be different for different people. My recommendation for us today is simple. Let's look at life through this lens once in a while, particularly if you're feeling tired, in order that we can work out what's sapping my energy. Why am I feeling low? Why have I not been able to live the life that I want what I think God wants me to? So we're going to look at two things, and we're going to look at things that sap our energy and things that give us energy. These are not comprehensive. These are a few things I'm going to throw in. In your discussion groups, you can talk about lots more of these, and that's fine. Okay, it's not just active. Some activities will tire us out, and you will hopefully, as you discuss, get hold of them. But there are sometimes our attitudes or our motivations that can affect our energy levels because it forces us to make bad choices. What do I mean? For some of us, we find it really hard to say no. And if this is something you struggle with, you'll probably be quite tired because you're probably doing too much. So if you can't say no to things, have a think about this. Why don't you say no? Just think about why. Is it disappointing people? Is it because you get your value from activity? What is it that's driving that? And think about it in more broad. If you said yes to everything, what would your life be like? Could be exciting, but probably really crazy and really tiring. Another thing that can affect our decisions about what we do and then therefore suck us of energy is getting self-worth from the wrong things. What makes you feel good about yourself? Is chasing after those things depleting your energy? See, getting an emotional high means that other areas of your life are going to struggle. If you're chasing the wrong things all the time, you're going to be sapped of energy. So for many people, overworking can be a way of getting self-worth, but running themselves into the ground. I'm doing this, I'm productive, I'm ticking off the list. But actually, rest is what's required. For some people, that connection with other people can really drive their emotional buzz, and it does them so much good. But if they do it too much, it leaves them tired, but they still hanker after that because they don't want to be lonely, don't want to be on their own, but they could end up using too much energy through doing that. The other thing that kicks in is guilt. Not allowing ourselves rest. Rest is for the wicked. That's what we've heard, haven't we? Rest is not for the wicked, it's for the godly. For those who trust in him and those who realize they're human and know how God's made them. And often we can feel guilty for not being as busy as other people. Let me tell you something, comparison is a killer. What energizes you and your energy levels, your capacity is totally different to me. It's totally different to the person sitting on your left and your right. And we can't go, I should be as busy as them. No, we should be as busy as God has called us to be. And we should be stewarding our energy levels and saying yes to the right amount and the right type of things in order to live a godly, effective life that accepts our human frailty and God's design for us. What about creating energy or recreating energy? I'll come back to that in a second. How do we recreate energy? Well, I'm hoping, having done a few weeks of this course, you realise that the main one here is connecting with God. Now, sometimes that can feel tiring and hard work, but fundamentally, He's our life source. He's divine, and connecting with Him is going to give us life. So we look at Mary and Martha as a good example. Mary chose the right thing, the good thing. Only one thing was needed, Jesus says. Mary chose it. Martha wanted to be busy. Who knows why? Maybe she got her self-worth from activity. Maybe she was really wanting to look after people and please them. We don't know. But Jesus said of Mary, she did the right thing. Another thing that can help recreate energy is spending time with close family. It's not always the case in the sense that it isn't energizing for everyone, nor is the case that everyone's family is close by or nearby and you're able to do that. But the point is this, to find a group of friends or relationships and connections that you are known deeply and you're free to be yourself with. That close, connected, accepting relationships allows us to be who we are, allows us to be supported, and it energizes us in the right amounts, different for different people. Another thing that can recreate energy is satisfying work. Doing something, we're called to work. That we see that in the Garden of Eden, don't we? Adam was called to work the garden before the fall. It's godly, it's God's design. But if you are in work that you're not enjoying or that is stressful, it's going to sap you of energy. So I would ask you to do two things, or ask God two things. For Him to change your attitude or to change your work, potentially change your job as well. Now, this is really complex. It's not as straightforward as I know. And if you want to do more on this, you have to come and do discipleship training. We do a whole morning on this. Or have a conversation in your group to help one another. But when we're involved in satisfying work, it energizes us. I want to talk about something as well. We talk about leisure. Let's not talk about leisure pursuit. Let's talk about recreational pursuit. Why? Because in the word recreational is recreate. I'd love you to, in your groups, talk about this, to be honest. What are the recreational activities that you can be involved in that produce energy for you? Do you know what they are? Are you doing them regularly? For me, it's getting out for a run. For me, it's spending time with close friends. For me, it's music and writing music and playing instruments. There's things I know I can do to energize myself that give me energy. With recording music, I remember once before the Kiss, Jules went away for a weekend, and I spent 8 hours straight recording and missed a couple of meals because I just was so into it. It energized me so much. I'm not advising you do that, and we'll come to that in a second in terms of not missing out on food. But there are things we do that energize us, and we find out what they are and put them into our lives that can help us serve God more effectively. You see, it can sound a little bit selfish. I need to go for my run in order to be energized. I need to go to a cafe and drink coffee and read a book in order that I am energized. No. The focus is this. I want to serve God and glorify Him effectively. And I know to do that, I need to recreate energy to give out in other areas of life. So I will make it a focus and a priority to do the things with appropriate regularity that give me energy. Do you know what yours are? And are you doing them? Final one, to create energy. Healthy living. This is really straightforward. You know this, but I want to put in this context, I hope is going to have extra weight and importance, because we can sometimes dismiss this as faddish or something that other people talk about. But in the context of managing our energy and living effectively for God, I want us to genuinely think about healthy living. So are you getting the right amount of sleep? For some of you, that's not possible, and I'll come back to that later, because you've got small kids that are waking you up, or you've got insomnia, or those sort of things. But if sleep is not an issue, are you getting the right amount of sleep? John Stott was famously asked this question: what is the key to keeping your spiritual fervour? His answer was this: knowing how much sleep I need and getting it. So John Stott would say to you, if you want to be on fire for God and live a life effective for him, how much sleep do you need? Make sure you get it. Are you eating well? The right foods and the right amounts. If we're serious about living for God, then we'll take what goes into our mouth seriously. It affects our energy levels. It affects our ability to pursue God. I try and not eat sugary snacks between meals because I know it makes my energy levels do that. I'm happy to tag it onto a meal that I've had at the end. I love a bit of pudding, I love a bit of cake, I love a bit of chocolate. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying let's just all eat salad. But eating the right amounts of food and the right types of food at the right time can help us more effectively serve God, to maintain our energy levels appropriately. Final thing on energy and healthy living: exercise. Doing the right amount of exercise gives us energy. Doing too much tires us out, doing too little tires us out. Are you exercising in a way that's appropriate to your age, your health, and your lifestyle? Really practical things to think about. Right, we've covered a lot in the time we've had, and you probably got loads to talk about. I probably don't need to ask any questions because I've probably enough there for you to start talking out, but I'll throw some in just in case you get stuck. Can you identify which activities in your life sap your energy? What are your motivations for doing them? Why do you do those things? Can you identify some activities that re-energize you? How can you plan to introduce them more regularly as part of your life? Number 5, are you living in a generally healthy way? Are there any changes you'd like to commit to on the back of this evening? Simple questions. Hope that's enough. 20 minutes to chat, maybe 10 minutes to feedback in a group. We'll come back and I'll wrap us up, end off today's session. Right, I hope that was a fruitful discussion about roots. A fruitful discussion. I know I always benefit from looking at life in this way once in a while. I don't always process it in this way, but it's good to stop occasionally and process it in this way. And it's always worth stopping, saying, I'm not superhuman. God has made me reliant upon him and his provision. And I'm going to live in a way that accepts my humanity in order that I can more effectively live for him. But I just want to finish by pointing out that we are a people of faith, not of practicalities. We've talked about some practical things here. What do I mean by this? I mean 2 things. There may be times in your life where you really cannot manage these things that we've talked about. Whether it's sleep, you can't manage that sleep, or activity. You just can't control those things. You're just doing the things you have to do. Caring for an aged parent or having a small child can be those times. I want to encourage you to believe that God's part of that and he can give you supernatural energy and patience to do those things. And maybe at the end of the session, you may want to ask for some prayer for that. He can do that. It's not just practical, we're people of faith. But also, as you carefully consider the things that you take on in your life, perhaps you might go, well, I haven't got the energy to do that, nor the time, so I'm going to choose not to do that. Let me say this, that's wise. But if God speaks, we obey. So if you're feeling tired and too busy, and God speaks to you about doing something else, do you notice what? We respond to his voice and we obey him. He'll give us the extra time. He'll give us the extra energy we need. We're not just machines, a mathematical machine. This much energy goes in, this goes out. We're people of faith, following him obediently. Right? Session 4 over. We have some more routes to go through week 5 and week 6, which is about relationships with others. I hope today's been helpful, and I'll see you next week.